Good afternoon. My name is Kat Walsh. I'm the Executive Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for our development community, as well as a faculty member at the Ford School of Public Policy. I'm thrilled to see many of your faces again and to welcome you into conversation about how we can support all of our students at Michigan with a particular focus on women. I want to recognize that we are gathering on Veterans Day. We want to thank all those who gave themselves for our safety, our freedom, and our country. If there are those on this call that have served, we thank you. And we honor and thank those in our Michigan community, as well as your relatives, your companions, and friends and family. Happy Veterans Day. So last year, many of us gathered across the West Coast to discuss how we can support our students and alumni, our Michigan community, with a focus on women. And we heard from all of you, we are committed. What's happening across the Michigan landscape so that we can identify ways to support and amplify. So we wanted to bring everyone together today to showcase some of the great work that's happening in some of our schools and colleges and units. I'm thrilled about today's discussion. We are going to hear about some of our amazing initiatives. We're going to have a panel discussion with a Q&A, hear some of your questions, and this will serve as a springboard into conversation. We want your ideas so that after that panel discussion, when we go into breakout rooms, we can think about how to support our students, our alumni, particularly in specific regions of the West Coast. So I want to share a little bit about who's joining us today. So first, I want to talk about our faculty panelists. And it's my pleasure to give a brief introduction to these three dynamic U of M faculty leaders who, with particular insights on developing leaders in science and technology, they will speak in succession, and then we'll have a moderated conversation. So our first speaker on the panel is going to be Dr. Natasha Turman. Dr. Turman is a lecturer in LS&A and the director of the Women in Science and Engineering Residence Program. As a natural scientist turned social scientist, Dr. Turman brings scholarly expertise along with a passion and commitment to mentor, support, and empower collegiate women. Dr. Turman will then transition to our second speaker, Dr. Mary Hines Lee, who is a professor of executive education in the Ross School of Business and director of the Ross Summer Business Academy, a unique opportunity for high school students to explore their interests in business. She recently received the NERI Teaching Excellence Award from the Ross School for her exceptional leadership in the classroom. And finally, our third panelist will be Dr. Mingyan Liu, who is the Peter and Evelyn Foos Chair of Electrical and Computer Engineering and Professor in Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at U of M. She is an internationally recognized expert in resource allocation, sequential decision theory, and game theory, and an entrepreneur, having successfully commercialized her research in cybersecurity risk quantification. So that's who we're going to be hearing from today. But first, I want to introduce our hosts for today. They are both Michigan graduates, they're volunteers, they're donors, they're huge supporters of Michigan. We're going to hear from Gabriella Schuster, who is a corporate vice president for Microsoft One Commercial Partner. As corporate vice president for the One Commercial Partner business, Gabriella leads the Microsoft Partner Business Strategy for all commercial partners across the globe. That's over 300,000 organizations. Her organization is responsible for managing the partners as well as leading initiatives and programs globally that enable partners to build IP, services, and profitable businesses, and deliver solutions that empower customers to digitally transform their companies and realize greater business value through the use of technology. She has worked across multiple parts of Microsoft Business, from managing sales and marketing teams across the server and cloud business, the Windows Client Commercial Business Enterprise Services, licensing, business development, training initiatives, segment marketing, and global operations. Gabriella serves on the board of directors for Chinasoft International, Women in Cloud, WIT Network for Women, and the UW Bothell Board of Advisors. She is a recent recipient of the Athena Global International Award, recognizing women of distinction who have served the community and advocated on behalf of women. She is the first woman in IT to receive this recognition. She will also be joined by our other host, Mary Ellen Coe, who is the president of Google Customer Solutions. Mary Ellen oversees the global ads business for mid-market and small businesses, serving millions of customers and thousands of partners worldwide. Her team helps businesses get online and grow, focusing on sales and operations for this high growth segment, as well as the acquisition of new advertisers and channel partners for Google Ads and YouTube. Prior to joining Google in 2012, Mary Ellen was a partner with McKinsey & Company for 12 years, where she advised leading consumer, media, and tech companies and led the consumer marketing and sales practice in North America. Earlier in her career, she spent 11 years in marketing and brand strategy, helping leading brands expand their global reach. She is a director on the board of Merck & Company, Inc., and a member of the Ross School Advisory Board at the University of Michigan. She served on Whole Foods Market Board of Directors and was involved in stewarding the company through the acquisition by Amazon. So as you can see today, we have amazing people joining our conversation. So I am now going to hand it over to Gabriella.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome to this discussion. I look forward to this Q&A. This is an area that is super important, and I'm very passionate about how we get more women into business and the importance of stepping into leadership positions in business. We face a global crisis on gender equity across the board. It's being made even worse by the pandemic, where women are dropping out of the workforce at an alarming rate. And when I think about IT specifically, this global crisis is as bad as it's ever been. Essentially, when I started in the tech industry in 1991, 36% of the computing workforce was women. In 2019, that number had fallen to 27%. And it's about to get a lot worse because all companies are going through, 70% of all companies are going through a digital transformation, meaning that they're becoming technology-led, meaning technology comes out of high tech and into every industry. And you see that when you do your banking or your shopping or your entertainment, it's a tech-first world. And in that, the jobs that are being displaced are disproportionately impacting women and people of color. And so all of that combines to give us this crisis that we're in. You overlay the global pandemic, and it means that we need all of you more than ever before to step up, to step into leadership, and to bring others with you. So that's why I'm particularly pleased to be part of this discussion today.
Thanks, Gabrielle. It's nice to see everybody, and I'm excited to be with such an incredible panel. And as Gabrielle just pointed out, it's a topic that is really relevant to all of us, now more than ever. I'm excited to introduce Dr. Natasha Turman as the kickoff speaker. And I had occasion to speak with Dr. Turman just a couple of days ago to learn a little bit more about how she pursued this area. She's a natural scientist, so she has a background, her bachelor's of science in chemistry. And we talked about, when she was graduating and looking at professional or academic opportunities, not seeing mentors and people that looked like her that she could follow and aspire to. And that's something that we talk a lot about in the tech industry broadly, whether it be computer sciences or with the Merck board, which I'm involved with, chemistry and biology, not seeing that both gender and racial diversity, which is so critical to have for our younger generation to be able to look up to. So I want to, Dr. Turman has incredible academic scholarship in this area and has really looked at the intersection of supporting women and diverse individuals in leadership, and how do they pursue greater scholarship in the STEM field. So without any further ado, let me introduce Dr. Natasha Turman.
Thank you so much, Mary Ellen. That was a beautiful introduction. And I am very delighted to be here today and to have this conversation. I am going to try to share my screen in true student affairs fashion. I have to have visual aids so that I can, have bring everyone along with me. But I am starting year 2 in my role as director for Women in Science and Engineering at the University of Michigan. And prior to starting in this capacity, I was a faculty member at Miami University in Ohio. And so I have my hand in the scholarship world, but I am truly a scholar practitioner because I know what the literature says and I understand, what we see when we look out in the corporate world. And I want to be a part of the change to facilitate that. And so having the opportunity to work at the University of Michigan, and specifically to work with amazing students who are pursuing and are interested in various elements of the STEM field, allowed me to truly kind of come full circle from leaving the natural sciences to be able to come back and support students who are on their journeys and trying to get those in science, technology, engineering, math degrees. And so I thought it would be helpful to just kind of provide some context to what the WISE-RP is and why it's important. This is the current virtual world. We're having this conversation right now on Zoom, and so I thought it would be really nice for you all to see the students who make up the WISE-RP all behind Zoom tiles. But this is just a little snapshot of highlighting the diversity of over 130 first and second year students who are pursuing their various STEM degrees. And our mission within the WISE-RP is to truly support and recruit and retain a diverse population of students in STEM, and to make sure that they are exposed to both academic and co-curricular experiences that will allow them to fully have a holistic experience and make sure that they can cultivate community and build their network. And that is one of the flagship things about the WISE-RP, where our alum come back, current students want to continue to stay engaged because of the community and the relationships that they were able to build within our community. And so I just wanted to share a little bit of who we are, because to Gabriella's statistics that she shared, is very much so apparent when we look at the leaky pipeline for the number of women and women of color who are pursuing STEM fields. We currently have good representation from students who are in the College of Engineering, as well as in LS&A, 1 or 2 in kinesiology or architecture, a nice balance between in-state and out-of-state. But when you look at our racial demographics, when you look at our first generation status, we have work to do, and we have, we need to continue to support students across all measures, across all intersections of their identity as they want to pursue STEM. And how do we keep them? How do we retain them? And so those are the ways that we try to do that, and the ways that we try to actualize our mission is through our program tenets, which are things that as new director, I kind of came in to focus on, is how do I help you deepen your understanding of the importance of identity and intersectionality as it pertains to STEM? How do I build your STEM efficacy and continue to bolster your belief in yourself that you can do STEM? And then how do we cultivate critical leaders? How do we make sure that you are cognizant of the systems in the world in which you're navigating and the implications for the variety of disciplines that you're pursuing? And what does that look like when you're in those positions of change? And so we do that in 2 ways, through curricular and co-curricular touch points. And so we have a membership course. We have research opportunities where our students can get to research. We have invited guests and workshop speakers. We have alumni engagement from both WISE-RP alum as well as the broader University of Michigan alum. And then from a co-curricular perspective, we focus on personal and professional development, multiple social engagement opportunities, how to increase mentorship and networking, how to help them build their brand, as well as that additional alumni engagement that I mentioned in the curricular component. So when we think about all of those things kind of overlaying in the heart of why we're here today, is what are the ways in which we can kind of continue to support these particular students, as well as the ones that our next panelists will discuss, around getting to interact and get to know you all, to continue to build that pipeline, to be able to cultivate as many leadership opportunities as we can. Some of the current things that we do within the WISE-RP, we have WISE Nights, which are opportunity to have invited guests like alum to come back and talk about their journeys. When we look at the literature, one of the greatest touch points to build and retain women in STEM and and individuals with diverse identities is to have vicarious experiences. And so to be able to learn from and have role models who are in those paths that you are trying to pursue is greatly impactful to your overall experience. And so WISE Night allows us to do that. Alumni Weekend is another opportunity where we invite WISE-RP alum back to talk with our students, to tell them about their journeys and to help give them tips and tricks on how to navigate that. And then we also sponsor research and allow our students to do internships and research, and some of them get to work with alum across the country and even internationally. Some future opportunities that I would love to see happen as a new director, I have a lot of lofty goals, but I would love to increase some opportunities for career shadowing, to cultivate a mentorship program, as well as some excursions, because having some direct experiences and hands-on experiences are really powerful. We have a membership course that I mentioned a little while ago. And so being able to have guest speakers and alums would be awesome speakers to come talk to our students and help them see the ways in which your work intersects and how you lead in those capacities, as well as some more research opportunities and specifically some leadership development experiences. And so I know that my awesome colleague, Dr. Hines Lee, can build on these initiatives over at the Ross School of Business. So I'm going to stop talking and pass the mic to Dr. Hensley, and look forward to our Q&A a little bit later.
Hi, I am Dr. Hines Lee from the Ross School of Business, and I will tell you that about 12 years ago, one of the groups that I'm a faculty advisor for is the Michigan Business Women. And so the undergraduate Michigan Business Women put together a campus-wide women's career fair just for women across the campus. And a lot of times what we'll do is fireside chats to prep students, especially if they're not in the Ross School of Business, and some of the things they need to learn about engaging with corporate representatives. So at the Ross School of Business, there is so much opportunity for alums to get involved. The Michigan Businesswoman Club has panels all the time that allows them to actually ask women in positions of power to understand more about career paths and the hiccups or the problems or how they deal with certain things. And so having panelists is really important. In addition to that, we always want guest speakers that are in the business world, and probably more likely than not, they've been males. So getting more women speakers in would be a really big win for us at Ross. And the great thing now is you can come into the classroom via Zoom. It used to be Skype, but now it's Zoom. And you can actually make a difference. And some of the classes are small, 30, 40, 50 students. So there's really that chance to have better engagement. In addition to that, there is a class that I have, and I know there's a couple other professors that have classes like this, where my class is about how to use digital tools internally to manage organizations. And the students study for the first 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and the last 7 weeks, they actually do work for a sponsor. It's at no cost. The only thing we ask for is that the sponsor have people available to engage with the students. And what we do is we find a problem that you have or a bottleneck or an issue, and we find the right way that technology might solve it. And the students do all the research. They do an incredible report. They do a slide deck that is pretty amazing stuff these days, guys. And they give you a good, better, best solution so that you can actually see that they're really helping to solve a problem. And they get to say they're a digital consultant because they're really helping businesses. I will tell you right now, I get the same companies all the time because they know it's great work. I kind of laugh because earlier somebody was talking about what their daughter was doing as a sophomore. And I can tell you, when we have that co-next or that involvement with students career fair wise in the fall, it's usually early September. And I'm often shocked that we have freshmen there. I was still trying to figure out my way from my dorm to the classroom, and these people are showing up for, career fairs. So it's a pretty incredible group of students. I mean, think about your alums and your pals. It hasn't, it just gets better. The students at the University of Michigan are fabulous. The alumni at the University of Michigan are fabulous. So if we can connect the two, I think it would be a huge win, especially for the students that I know and that are so willing to be involved with any alum that's willing to connect with them. I'm really happy to be able to pass this on to my colleague. And Mignon, I'm going to give you the floor.
Thank you. I am very happy to be here. I am Mignon Liu. I think I'm here representing the College of Engineering, where I've been faculty for just over 20 years. I became department chair in 2018. Prior to 2016, there had only been 2 female chairs in the college that I know of. And then in 2 short years, 17 and 18, we saw a large crop of female chairs appointed, and I was one of them. Women now account for 6 out of the 13 department division chairs in the college and 2 of the 4 associate deans. There are a couple more women on the college executive committee, so in total, women now occupy about 11 out of the 25 top faculty leadership roles. That total is roughly the same as how many women held one of these positions in the college's entire history prior to 2016. As a matter of fact, our Dean Gallimore penned an op-ed in the Chronicles of Higher Education in 2019 about how we were able to come this far. And he said, I directly quote, "Diversity is not a charitable cause. It's about staying competitive." On that note, I'd like to share some of the progresses we've made and many of the challenges we continue to face in cultivating an education research environment that promotes the success of women and women leaders, both among faculty and among students. On the faculty front, we've been working on improving diversity and climate, raising awareness, improving recruiting and retention. Some of the things that I have been personally involved in includes the Dean's Advisory Committee on Female Faculty, which I chaired for 2 years back in 2013 to 15. Some of the things we did, for instance, we conducted a leadership survey of senior engineering female faculty to better understand, 1, whether they were considered for leadership roles, and 2, the reasons for taking or turning down such opportunities. The results were very instructive and illuminating. And 2, we started the practice of meeting with every female faculty candidate during the recruiting season as a non-evaluative component of the interview process, basically to give them a chance to ask questions they might not otherwise feel comfortable asking. This practice proved very popular, so now we do this with all candidates regardless of gender. And one other thing we did, we really championed for more family-friendly policies within the college. When I joined university in 2000, the standard practice then around childbirth is that you can request a 1-year extension on the tenure clock. You didn't have to use it, but it was the standard remedy, if you will, to account for the productivity loss due to childbirth. This had many issues. One of them is, of course, you're making an already very lengthy process even longer. And now imagine having 2 kids during tenure. By the time I had my second child, the policy had already improved to giving 1-term teaching release to the birth mother. We advocated for more, and now the standard practice is we get, you get 2 terms of teaching release for every physical childbirth. Essentially, that's effectively a whole year if you count in the summer. And this, I think, is probably one of the most progressive maternity accommodations in higher ed. Across the college, female tenure track faculty now account for roughly 22% of the total. We've come a long way. We were about 16% 10 years ago, but we clearly still have a very long way to go. And I would say this is particularly the case in my own departments in electrical and computer engineering. We have 9 women out of 72 tenure track faculties. That's 12.5%. And most of these women were recruited within the last 7 years. Also, as one of the hosts correctly stated in the outset, the pandemic is bringing new challenges. There's already ample evidence showing that the impact pandemic has had on the scholarly output of male and female faculty members is very different, largely due to the disproportionate childcare responsibility. Most of our kids are effectively homeschooled. And it's being reported that some male faculty are getting a pandemic boost in their productivity. This is something that the college and departments are actively working on to address, and I would love to hear ideas from this audience. On the student front, across the college, women now account for 28% at a bachelor's level, 25 at the master's, and 27 at the doctoral level. In our own department, we engage very closely with the local SWE chapter. I have attended the WE conference to improve our outreach. I actually served on a panel a couple of years ago on leadership at the WE conference. And we also sponsor and work very closely with local student groups. We have a student activity group, M Rover team, in the college. Amazingly, their executive board is 80% women and their membership is about 50% women. So they have done a far better job than we have. I've been keen on emulating what they have done. And in my conversation with them, a key ingredient seems to be very, very aggressive personal touch. And we're also working very closely with a Women in an ECE undergraduate student group. Over the summer, we supported their reading and awareness effort on race and racism. And we're currently working with them to broaden a peer mentoring program for all our undergraduate students. Again, I think on how to get women interested in engineering and ECE in particular, and keeping them in this field and excelling in this field is something we have a long way to go, and an area that we actively seek alum involvement in. And with that, let me hand this back to Kat.
Thank you so much. Well, I want to encourage all of you to submit your questions. We received a couple in advance, so I'm going to start with one of the questions we received while we wait for our other attendees to send their questions in. Dr. Liu, I really appreciated the quote that you shared from Dean Gallimore, which is, and I want to repeat it again, diversity is not a charity, it's about staying competitive. So one of the questions that I have for all of you is, when we think about increasing representation of women, what is the balance when we think about intersectionality? So Dr. Turman, you talked a little bit about this too. So like when we're thinking, how do we think about increasing representation of women, but then thinking about intersectionality with race or ability or any of the other identities? How are you thinking about that question?
Well, my students just had a whole module on identity and intersectionality. And I think the important thing to note is that not only is it the intersections of those identities, but the systems that that make those identities and how they compound. You know, when you see me, I'm not just a woman, I'm a Black woman. And so the systemic challenges of our world, you know, have direct implications for the ways in which my identities intersect, the same as if I had a different ability status. And so when we want to talk about increasing representation, it's very much so important to understand that who has access and the barriers that they may have had to navigate to get there are important to consider. So it's the numbers are important, but also kind of the why. And what are the kind of intentional and strategic initiatives that need to be at play to make sure that you can kind of attend to some of those systemic barriers to kind of backfill. And so I try to help students understand, that, that's the difference between equality and equity, right? And so when we want to, talk about leadership and increasing, representation across leadership, like how do we have to do that? It has to be very purposeful and very strategic in the ways in which the preparation and the exposure needs to be, I guess, curated in a way that will attend to those intersections. Because to your point, Kat, it's really, you can't have that conversation without truly naming that and centering that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just jump in for a sec, I think that, to reinforce what Natasha said, it is about being very intentional, and it is about looking across all dimensions of diversity. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is to make sure that you are screening people in, and that you aren't putting up unnatural barriers that screen out, candidates of any particular dimension of diversity, right? And that takes a very, very intentional lens. And when you can do that successfully, when you can build an organization that has a diverse leadership team and strong representation of diversity of multiple dimensions throughout the organization, then there's numerous studies that show that that generates a higher degree of overall profitability for the organization, as well as employee engagement and customer satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
So at the Ross School of Business, one of the things that we're doing and we've been doing for the last few years is having a diversity, equity, and inclusive curriculum committee. And I'm a member of that committee, and it is amazing when you really, look at every single class, how there needs to be more, and it really needs to start right in the classroom. In addition to that, I have to take my hat off to some of the men in the MBA program, because the Michigan business women asked them to become allies, ask them to be the ones that spoke up, and don't make the person that is, the diverse person, always have to say something. They're the ones being, kind of held back. So, having someone other than them speak up in the meetings when they see something, and making sure we're making allies and having everyone focus on this issue. And that's a really big focus for us at Ross.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add, I think this idea of making sure we filter them in and don't filter them out is exactly, I think, what we strive for in faculty recruitment. We now require all faculty involved in our search process to go through this thing called STRIDE workshop training. And it has been very, very useful. But I think there continues to be a gap between what we rationally realize, what we need to do to get there, and the actual implementation. When it comes down to the actual decision making, I still see a big gap.
Thank you. I really appreciate all of these thoughtful responses. Dr. Hines Lee, I'm two-part question for you. One, what types of organizations are students consulting out to? And second, knowing that consulting is still rather male-dominated, there's not a lot of diversity in all of its forms, how are you preparing students to navigate that?
So the funny thing is, when you look at finance, it's pretty male dominated, and you look at consulting, it's pretty male dominated. And the tough thing is, we really have to, one, make our female students feel safe that they can go into these organizations and ask questions and be heard, and know how to speak up in those situations and know when to partner and ask for help. I think a lot of times, especially young women, are not really comfortable asking for help. So showing them the different phraseology and scripting so that they can then make it their own, but helping them navigate through some really difficult times. And I would love to say that, boy, it's changed a lot since I was 40 years ago, whatever. It hasn't. There's still the same issues. There's still the same problems. There's still the same walls that they hit. And I was speaking to a male CEO, and he said, well, we have a hard time recruiting women. I said, then you're doing it wrong. Like, it's not the women, it's the, you have to refocus on what you're doing. And maybe you should talk to the women in your organization to help you with this. So we're real honest with our students, and we lay out the framework of what they're probably walking into. And then we try to, I always say quality, nobody ever complains about quality, but also making sure that you can communicate the things that you want and need so that you can have your quality of work show.
Great. And what organizations are they supporting right now? Who are your partners?
So there at the Ross School of Business, there's a lot of clubs. And the great thing about the clubs is we have a lot of alums that were once in the club that kind of, you know, we're very fortunate. We have fabulous companies that come to recruit at Ross, that come to help the students, that literally walk them through a lot of different things. So we've built some pretty great connections. But there is a consulting club. There is 4 different finance clubs. There is the Michigan Business Club. There is the there's like so many terrific clubs. It's almost to the point where I have to tell some of the students, focus on your schoolwork and make clubs less so. But there's so many great ways that they have opportunity. But what we still tend to find is that one woman that somebody knows is constantly contacted, or that one, you know, person of color is always called on. So we need to bring in more alums that are diverse to help our students so that they can see themselves.
Perfect. Thank you. I have one final question before we go into breakouts. And I saw Amy's question come in, which I think will be a good primer for those breakouts. But, you know, we've talked a lot about mentorship and how critical that is. We know, of course, that a lot of our organizations, you know, including, I mean, institutions of higher ed, are spending significant resources, for instance, on training, right? So that professional development, we can think of anti-bias training, things like that. Dr. Liu, you mentioned some changes to practice, right? So really looking at the system and making changes. I'm interested in hearing from each of you, what do you think that balance is of systemic change and addressing our policies and our business practices and our procedures, and the training and the mentorship and the professional development? I know this is a huge question and dialogue right now among diversity, equity, and inclusion leaders in companies. So I'm just really interested in learning more about what you're seeing, hearing, and thinking about.
Maybe I'll jump in. So I think both are critical. I think systemic, you know, institutionalized changes sends a very prominent message. I would say, you know, this day and age, our family-friendly policies is what we use to attract top talent. It's a selling point. And I strongly encourage every student who comes my way, you know, I'll basically say, this is something you need to ask during the interview process. It's a very important aspect of the institution, you know, the organization you're joining. Find out. So that's on the policy side. I think individualized mentorship is also extremely important, because you can have policies in place and then you can have individuals who will ask, is it safe to apply that policy? They're not sure. They don't know whether there is a catch somewhere, whether you'll get punished. Just yesterday, I was on the panel. When I raised this point, a question immediately arose. Is it safe to ask this question during the interview? Am I going to be penalized? So I think that's where individual mentorship comes in, and to basically explain the nuances, and somebody with institutional knowledge can explain, here are the examples, and yes, maybe there is a hidden peril, and that's how you work around it. So I think both are crucial, but they serve different purposes. I think without institutionalized changes, then you get into, well, whether I succeed, whether I can do well, heavily hinges on whether I happen to have a very powerful, knowledgeable mentor, and so on. So both are crucial.
Yeah, I'd love to build on that point. One of the things we found, we started by employing systemic changes in recruiting, expanding pipelines, making diverse pipelines mandatory, unbiasing position descriptions, et cetera, all really crucial actions to take to change systemic processes. But what you end up finding is people can hide behind process ultimately,
Mhm.
right? You can always, and I think it's an important point Dr. Turman made, people have had very different experiences over time that they bring to the table. So you have to acknowledge the past. And if you don't have mentors, advocates, people willing to take bold decisions and acknowledge past, racial institutions as an example, and make proactive choices to screen people in, I've found, and we found systematically, that it doesn't really affect change. So I think I would completely agree. Both are very, very critical. One can't work without the other effectively.
Yeah, I wanted to also build on what Dr. Liu and Mary Ellen just shared. When I'm glad that we have this opportunity to talk with alum and who are kind of connected across industries, because that's what our students need. Like, they need to have the mentorship and the connection with individuals to help them build their navigational capital. When we talk about, that's one of the frameworks for Terry Osso's community cultural wealth, specifically for communities of color. But when I think about applying that framework to the students that I serve and trying to help them understand that building and bolstering their navigational capital, they can do that through the mentors and the relationships that they build, because to be able to have someone to call on to say, hey, is this penalty, is this safe, should I do this? And helps you navigate that labyrinth, because for women in leadership, it is a labyrinth. We talked about the glass ceiling shattering, for our current vice president-elect, but it's very much so a labyrinth for a lot of individuals as they try to pursue leadership positions. And so being able to build their navigational capital, being able to build their social capital so that they can have a large and expansive network is powerful. And so that is what I hope that students get to tap into by being in this University of Michigan network, by being able to coalesce with alum who are doing amazing things, and that can give them kind of the playbook a little bit. Because if you have minoritized identities, knowing that playbook is the difference from thriving and floundering in your respective industries. So I just wanted to name that capital is so important. It's so far greater than financial capital, to make sure that they're successful.
And to take it even one step back, until they get a chance to see women in all these different kinds of positions, they're not even aware that it's possible. You have freshmen and sophomores that are trying to figure out what they're going to do for their career. And many of them might have parents that, are in one industry or haven't been in the kind of industries they need exposure to. So I agree with you 100% on that. That's just so important that they see it.
Great. Thank you. So I'm just going to ask one final question, and we only have about 2 minutes. So it'll be by kind of a quick fire round here. But so given that so many opportunities come from being in person and opportunistically raising your hand to take on new challenges, what is the university in this remote learning environment that's particularly compelling to provide opportunity for students, especially female students, to be able to raise hands, try new things, and therefore improve their visibility so that they can continue to be better known, since visibility is so important to their future pursuits? So what are you seeing happening now that we're in a virtual environment, and knowing that this pandemic is also having a profound impact on specific communities? The inequities are coming. Dean Du Bois said this. He's like, the cracks have always been there, but the pandemic has we can no longer ignore them, right? When it comes to some of our communities. So would be interested in your thoughts on that.
I literally had students truly nervous about their inability to build those relationships. We had a module on mentorship and networking. They're like, well, how do we even get to do this? Because we're Zoom fatigued. We don't even know who to connect with. They can't do research. And so to have some of those experiences that are foundational to their holistic development are being stifled right now because of the pandemic. And so that's a great question, Jennifer. Like, we are still trying to create as many touch points as we can. So to my future opportunities, like, those are new things because they are necessitated given our current climate. So how do I kind of infuse more touch points to our students through their curricular and co-curricular experiences? How do we kind of connect them through mentoring relationships? You know, LSNA has this whole new Connect program, which, you know, we're definitely going to capitalize off of to try to connect them with more alum and folks who are in the industry, because they are missing those opportunities to like put themselves out there. It's hard. It really is hard. And I think that that's one of the unfortunate byproducts of what I'm seeing because of our virtual learning and engagement space.
I will say that there is a silver lining. I think because now everything is virtual, there are things that are easier to organize and pull off. I'll give two examples. We have been running this reboot workshop. It's a workshop where we invite dozens of seniors, sometimes juniors from colleges around the country to come here on campus, and basically it's a one-day workshop showcasing what graduate school is about, whether grad school is for them. And then have them go through this one-on-one session with the faculty, review their resume, give them lab tours. Of course, this year we couldn't do this in person, so we did this virtually. But because we're doing it virtually, we were able to run it bigger. We had many more participants in the workshop, and thanks to our staff members, the virtual lab tour actually worked out really well. So that's one. Two is I actually just came out of a 2-day Rising Stars workshop in EECS. So this has been a workshop that electrical engineering and computer science departments around the country have been organizing every year. And this is specifically focusing on women. PhD students, postdocs who are interested in an academic career. Again, this year, because it's all virtual, the program is many times bigger than past. And also because it's virtual, we were able to involve many, many more faculty who volunteered their time as mentors. I actually imagine some of this will probably continue, but I completely agree with the difference in impact, and we clearly have students who are struggling.
Again, I think Zoom has been great. I think more women have felt comfortable putting a question in chat, raising their hand and knowing that they have an order in which they'll be selected. For our current students, MBA and BBA, one of the things that I've really asked my colleagues to do and I've promoted is having more office hours. I have probably met one-on-one with every student this semester, some of them more than once. And those that have some difficulties at home, you make sure to do it by phone. They have my personal cell phone versus Zoom because they have stuff going on in the back. And so it's really understanding that every single student during this kind of crazy pandemic time, some of them are at home, some of them are on campus in their apartment, but they really need that feeling of connection. And so we do that. And we also like to try to put them in breakout rooms with small groups of students for small amounts of time so that they get a sense of community in the classroom, like they actually get to know their classmates. So those are some of the things we're really trying to do to help the students right now.
Well, and I love that idea, like how can we create connection? So I think it's time for all of us to connect with each other. So we're going to go into breakout rooms. I want to point out that there's been a robust discussion happening in the chat, people dialoguing with each other. We want to continue that because in a 10-minute breakout room, we won't be able to share all our ideas with the amount of people that are there. So chat is a great way for us to build on that conversation. And it's about 6 minutes we'll be in those breakout rooms. So here's what the priming question is. All of you, when we met in person last year, for those that were able to attend, we talked about wanting to be able to do something to support our students, our fellow female colleagues, our alumni. So what can we do in the next 6 months, concrete actions to connect and support, whether it's these initiatives or other ideas we're not thinking about at Michigan that we need to be considering? So that's your prompt. And we'll have facilitators in the room, and we'll see you back. I would ask that you just select 1 or 2 people to share out what the key takeaways are so that we can gather that collective knowledge and move forward. So we will see you soon. Welcome back. Welcome back. So to end, we're going to hear just a summary from each group, but I'm going to actually call on all of us. As you know, this meeting is being recorded. And so we're also going to be able to record the chat. And I would really appreciate if every single person on this call could share their #1 takeaway from the conversations you just had in the chat function, so we can really see what's resonating with every single person. That will be the public chat that's recorded only, just so everyone's aware in case you've had some private chats. But if you could just share in the public chat what your key takeaway is for everyone to see, that will be really helpful as we have this conversation. So let's turn to the Bay Area. Who from the Bay Area can share out what some of those key takeaways are? Is that Ryan? Are you on mute? You can't unmute yourself?
Okay, yeah, now
there
I'm
we go.
unmuted. So from our group, just briefly, it really came down to prioritizing the engagement opportunities and where women are needed across campus, clarifying engagement opportunities so women know how to be speakers and be mentors, ways to get engaged, and then how do we build community? Through Slack channels and tearing down the walls between units. And Slack channels was the way, one of the ways that it's possible to do that. To note, time is very precious, and being on a panel all the time or doing 30-minute interviews with alums can be too much, but just dropping in and connecting where possible was attractive.
Great, thank you so much, Ryan, really appreciate that. So now let's hear from SoCal, Colorado, Utah, Washington, everyone, and I love these takeaways that are coming through, wow. So we'd love to hear from the other group. Who is the representative from there? If you could raise your hands and then we'll unmute you. Trying to see there.
It's Monica.
Hi everyone.
Monica, perfect, there we go. Thanks, Monica.
Hello, thank you guys so much. This is more than what I expected out of today, and it's so great to see familiar faces and unfamiliar faces. Quickly though, the things that our group kind of summarized is both students and recent alumni, and even some of our older alumni, often have imposter syndrome. It's not something that's new. It's just something women may be counting themselves out of opportunities and leadership roles that they are more than qualified for. But additionally, they also might not know all of the roles in these different businesses. So we spoke of whether it was in manufacturing or in these companies that we know the names of, we don't know all of the jobs that sit there. So we want to make sure that we're promoting them to our students and to our recent grads. But something else that I heard, which I was really excited about, is many of you wanting to be featured in a way so we could connect you to our students who want to get mentorship and have conversations. And thank you so much for saying that, because we will be following up promptly with many opportunities to do so. So yeah, finding a way to connect our students with the many opportunities, but also allowing our alumni and all of those on the call ways to know how they can connect. So I'm excited to see what's next. Thanks, Kat.
Perfect. You know, as reading through the responses so far in chat, and please feel free to add to this, one of the things that I'm hearing through what Ryan shared, what you just shared, Monica, and also coming through in chat is that we need connection, right? Connection is so critically important, and we heard how that's going to help all of us grow and be able to change industries. But what's also coming through, I think, as well, is that in that connection, because our time is limited, we want to know that where we're choosing to connect, where we're investing, is going to have a high impact. And that's where that clarity and prioritization is going to be really key to making sure that we are having the being able to support people and our community as best as we can. So I really appreciate that. We're so grateful to all of you for spending time. I know it's so busy right now and there's so much going on, and so we appreciate you taking time to spend with us today. We would love to connect this group. I think everyone shared that they wanted to be connected to each other. So we want to send out the contact information. If you feel uncomfortable with that, please feel free to let me know, or any of the people that you work with at Michigan. I put my email in the chat, but we really want to continue the conversation beyond today. I want to hand it back just really quickly to our host. Do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to share as we end our dialogue today? I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is a great conversation, and I really appreciate learning more from each of the faculty members. What they're doing. I was super impressed with the focus on creating more diversity within the university itself. I do think that it starts tops down within an organization, and that there have to be very systemic things so that students can see that there are people that they can relate to, and that these professions are professions that are open to everybody. And I think you start when you're in school, if you don't see people who are like you, you kind of close the door thinking that it's not for you. So I appreciate the effort being put in place to make sure that that happens.
Beautifully stated. Thank you so much. Mary Ellen, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm excited. First of all, a huge thank you to the faculty. And as I listen to you, I keep thinking about the roadshow potential, your collective knowledge and expertise, and really counsel that you could provide outside of academia. I think all of our organizations could really benefit from hearing you. So I'm thinking big event type effort. And I would really welcome an opportunity for this collective body of senior female leaders to get together and have more of a dialogue. I would really welcome that. I think we could do a lot together in terms of identifying opportunities to engage most effectively with the university.
Thank you so much. And I know the faculty have said this, and I can tell you from teaching as well this summer, and then I'm teaching in the upcoming winter, that when our students are able to connect, even for a short time with alumni, it changes their perception of their experience, of their institution, and of the world that they're walking into. So we're grateful for that opportunity to be able to connect them to you. So thank you again for today. And as we enter into the holiday season, we're wishing you all the best. Thank you for sharing your email addresses. We'll be sending all of you a list so that we can connect with each other. Thank you, and go Blue.